Welcome back to my channel. This is Fruit of Passion number 2, and we're going to continue on with the idea that this is going to everyone. This is for the general public, not only for the high IQ group. And the theory that I am publishing this section on is that everyone has a right to think anything they want to think, and different people have different opinions and different beliefs about a lot of different things. The thing that I'm going to differentiate is I am going to try to understand the truth behind some things that are written. And particularly, I'm going to be talking a lot about the Bible. And one of the motivations for doing what I'm doing is basically what Solomon was supposed to have written in Proverbs. Our thinking that we have, which can be anything, leads to what we do. Now, most people put some restrictions on the difference between what they think and then what they actually act out and do. And so what I'm going to be doing here is using what is said and try to relate that to actual facts that I'm aware of that we've learned from archaeology over the years. And in these things that we've learned, I've drawn conclusions from the different things that show up. Now, a quick example of that is going to be the writing of Noah in the Bible about when he did what he did. And he took his 3 sons, and then it goes into the genealogy of what his 3 sons did and who they had. And I noticed that it is not an easy thing to follow, because when Moses would say he has 3 or 4 sons, he'll give the names of all of them, and then he starts to give a family tree, but he a lot of times will jump to the youngest son to start the family tree. So it's a little confusing. It's a little harder to follow that way, but I think that Moses did it on purpose because he was trying to communicate to us that I'm giving you as close to what I know is happening. Now we have to remember Moses grew up in the palace in Egypt. Everyone agrees on that. That's what he said. And so he learned as he was growing up the education that they would teach the royal family. Now he was part of the royal family. He was one of the sons of the sister of the Pharaoh. And so he lived in the palace. He operated out of the palace. He basically was one of the priests in one of the many gods that Egypt had. But Moses tells us some things. He doesn't tell us everything. And so I'm going to be drawing conclusions from those. And the point I'm making here is when he tells us about the sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, and then he talks about what the 3 sons had, the children they had, and I think the middle one had a son called Aram. Now, Aram had some children, and one of the children that Aram had, his name is Ophir, and another one is named Uz, U-Z. Now, to me, it's not just a fluke that when, as I have already expressed before, that Solomon wrote the book of Job, that he used historical things that he knew about. That means that we have to draw the conclusion here that King Solomon had the writings of Moses, and he knew about Ophir and he knew about Uz. And now, the reason I use those 2 words is he used them in 2 different categories. When he said where Job came from the land of Uz, U-Z. But when he built ships on the Red Sea and put the Phoenicians as the captain of the ships and sailed down to India, and they found gold and they brought back a lot of gold from India for him, he referred to his gold mine as Ophir. Now, both of these clearly are Hebrew names because Moses wrote about them, told them they were the sons, the grandchildren, and the great-grandchildren of Noah in the Bible. Now, we did start with Adam and Eve, but then we supposedly eliminated everyone off the face of the earth. But we know that that didn't altogether happen because we have clearly with the story of Adam and Eve, when they talk about Cain having to flee, he went to the land of Nod and he married a woman. Now, we don't have any indication that that came from the tribe of Adam and Eve. That was a different group of people. And I think this is Moses' way of trying to blend in what he had learned about in Egypt as he was growing up, because they evidently had a lot of fossils, and the fossils were bigger than Homo sapiens were. So they drew the conclusion that there were superior beings here at one time that had died off. And the reason of the flood was for Moses explaining how God eliminated these larger human beings. Now we refer to them as Neanderthals, and we know that they had a larger stature, but they did not have as large a brain. So they were never able to create anything. All they did is use a few implements that God had already created and left around. Put a rock on a handle and used it as a club. Things like that they may have very well done. But as far as creating, like the Philistines did, taking copper and tin and making bronze was clearly a creation that only Homo sapiens have done. Now here in Passion of Theology 2, I'm going to go ahead and start expanding on what the thinking of different people were back at that time, how I came up with the conclusions that I did from what is written. And my conclusions are going to be probably somewhat different than other people believe about the same stories. But as I said before, everyone has a right to believe anything they want to believe. And a lot of what people believe helps support their religious attitude. And they hold these beliefs because it's part of their belief system in who they consider to be a supreme being, or a God, or a supreme God, or the one and only God. And being a Christian, we worship a one and only God. There's only one God that exists as far as most Christians are concerned, and Jesus Christ was the Son of God, which he came to show us the personality of God and teach us what he expected human beings to accept from what God was trying to teach us. And that's what the scriptures that the Hebrews use, and we in the Old Testament have the same thing, but we have the New Testament, which is the teachings also of Christ. I'm going to be talking a little bit about artificial intelligence. And I think artificial intelligence has a definite place in the very short future of the United States of America, and that's in the judiciary. I have already written a book and said the largest, most corrupt organization on the face of the planet is the American judicial system. Now, we can completely fix that by just installing artificial intelligence and putting everything that has to do with laws on the computer, and make the computer available to everyone, and make the computer the supreme ruler of every situation. So all we have to do now is to find out from the individuals that are having the conflict what your history is. And history means it's things that were actually done, not what you thought, not what you wanted, not what you expected, but you as an individual did certain acts and other people did certain acts. Those have to have the law applied to them that existed at the time that these acts were committed, and find out that in the commission of the acts that we're talking about, did we do what was right, or did we make a mistake and do what was wrong? If we did what was right, we should be rewarded from the people who are challenging us trying to accomplish what we want. Now, one of those things that I keep repeating is women need to be equal without any doubt in every aspect of the United States of America. And artificial intelligence would make that a first priority. It would make it happen before it actually took over making rules. But these are the kind of things that would be definite improvements to the system that we currently have. And we would be able to now build on the system we have by continuing forward. And by going forward, we will be in some ways maybe transgressing to what I said the Philistines had over 3,500 years ago. Now, the Philistines, I still think, had a superior society to any nation on the planet since they were eliminated. So I think it's important for us to start initiating new rules and do them initially. If you have even a little bit of a doubt, do it as an experiment so we can see if we have the thinking and the rules and the actions the same as the Philistines. Will we get the same results in our society? And I think the answer is yes, but we'll only know it if we try it. If we try it and do it, we can keep track of what was right and what was wrong and make adjustments and continue to move forward. One of the reasons I'm expressing the different things I think is to allow people to have an opportunity to think about things. Because when you first tell people something they totally disagree with, a lot of times they have a tendency to be very offended. But as I tell them things that they may find out to be true, maybe in the long run they will not only be offended, but they'll learn that we can actually, by reading the Bible and reading between the lines of what actually happened and what are stories in the Bible, we will understand more correctly how God wants us to act. And that's what we all want. All over the world, everyone that believes in a supreme being wants to do what God wants you to do. And we don't know actually if there is a heaven or hell, but whatever there is, if it exists, doing the will of God is going to put you in a better position than if you're not in the will of God. Not being in the will of God will probably place you in a position that you wish you had made some adjustments, tried to listen to the truth, and try to get a closer relationship with God. Never be afraid to grow. And by growth, that means that some things that you used to believe, you've moved beyond. But some things you learned when you were in the first grade were not exactly the same way you thought about things when you graduated from college. So you have to use the education system as a model for what you want to do in your belief of God. You weren't born knowing everything that God wanted you to know, and you're probably not going to die knowing everything God would like for you to know. So continue to work on it, continue to move forward, and as we continue these fruits of passion, then what I am talking about are the results. Fruits is a terminology for talking about the realizations and that we have acquired by understanding the different areas of passion and how some ideas are better than others. And those would be what I will be talking about are the fruits of passion that will actually lead us closer to the truth, with a closer understanding of God, so that we can continue to move forward and grow and continue to make everyone's life better and be more of a servant to all people than a taker. If we can learn to serve and share what we're able to produce, then we're doing what God put us here to do. We want to get the thinking to be more consistent with what is going to make a better world for everyone. And understanding what is true is a lot more productive than going along and believing things that are false. Because if it's false, it's really not going to lead anyplace. But if it really is the truth, it will help you move to an area where you can move even further into the future with more truth under your belt. So what we should do is let AI replace the 9 Supreme Court justices we have. We can put all of the laws on the computer. If anyone asked about a law, the judiciary would have been totally automated, because the computer can make sure that it's done perfect every time, or a lot less mistakes than human beings are doing. And or the facts of a law, they can find out way before they engage in the agreement with the people they're working with, that they're doing the right thing, or they're doing the thing they want to accomplish, before they agree on what the other person says. Because they can just put it in the computer, they can come out what the result would be if there were a lawsuit, and that would be the result 100% of the time. That way we could move forward and manufacture and produce without a large part of our money being distracted to people referred to as lawyers or attorneys, because all of that is a waste of money. It doesn't manufacture anything that people can consume. You're better off having paper clips than the result of an attorney. Now, people have to have attorneys now, because if you don't, the other side will win and they'll take your money. But if that is no longer on the table and they won't take your money, then you don't need to know what someone thinks you should or should not have done. You can check ahead of time, and that will be 100% the right answer. So that means now the attorneys can what? Go out and start working. Now, why do I think that we have professional politicians? Because professional politicians are just a natural outgrowth of saying, hey, lawyers don't have to work for a living, so why don't we get in and we'll use the government to butter our bread for us, so we can take advantage of what's going on, because that's all attorneys are doing. And if it were not for the inconsistency in the laws, then attorneys would not be necessary. But by having no actual conclusion of what the law is, and everyone not knowing for sure which way a thing will happen, and allowing judges to be able to rule any the way they want to, you can always get any kind of an answer from any judge or any situation. Even the one that I've expressed with me in the city of Martinez, which anyone in the 6th grade would have to admit, that is not justice. When you say do it one way, and you do it one way, and they say, no, that was wrong, do it another way. And then you do it another way, and they say, oh, you should have done it the way we told you the first time. Well, you did it both ways, but they kept you from getting your result in either one of them. That is a fraud of justice. And that is why I said the largest, most corrupt organization on the face of the planet is the American judiciary, because what they profess to be is such a wider gap than what they actually produce than anyone else in the world. Even the people that are taking and addicting women to be addicted to drugs so they can use them as sex objects, they know that they're doing what's wrong. So what they're knowing they're doing, and they know they're doing it for the money. That's all. They know they're doing it for what's wrong. They know there's a lot of money involved. They know that men are sexually inclined and that they can get the men to even pay even more for younger girls that should not be having sex at all. But that kind of thing will come to an end if anyone engages in those things once we've cleaned up our act and there are no professional politicians and women are absolutely equal in the society. We won't have those kinds of abuses. That's just the typical part of the fallout of the murder and mayhem years. And we want to put an end to that. We want to go back to a type of government that is better than what we have now, that is at least as good as they had 3,500 years ago. And that's the life the Philistines enjoyed as they were manufacturing and distributing throughout the Mediterranean world at the time. And the things they created, as I had expressed before, was one of them was the Great Pyramids in Egypt. And as what I understand is of all of the wonders of the ancient world, that's the only wonder that still exists to look at. So we do have one of them available to us, and the others have gone by the wayside. Go forward, I'll be expressing more stories about the Bible, some of the things that I think we can learn from what's written, not necessarily what actually is true, but for what is more likely than not to have some truth in it, if not completely true. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening to the Fruit of Passion number 2 and the different things I explained that will be covered in this 20-minute segment, and see if we can move forward to learn more things when I bring on Fruit of Passion number 3. But for now, I'm going to say if I said anything that you agree with, please subscribe to my channel. Tell your friends about it. Have them watch as well. And I'm going to terminate Fruit of Passion 2. Thank you for coming, and I look forward to seeing you in the future. Goodbye.